So today was the first day of Krystal and Saagar's Breaking Points show. It debuted this morning on YouTube, and basically it's essentially Rising, the same show, just under a different name and completely free of any corporate influence. So they have free reign to talk about whichever topics they want without having to feel like there's any pressure or influence coming from the suits or the higher ups. They're completely curating all the news topics they discuss and their guests they have on. And so far, it seems pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, one of the things that you and I talked about even before it was ever set in stone that Krystal and Saagar would be leaving the Hill and doing something on their own. We talked about how the one thing that is really different about Rising is the production value, right? The fact that they do segments, the fact that it's poised, they're at a desk. It's very, news a la MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or whatever. It's very professional and polished. And that was even something that they talked about today, is that was some of the feedback that they remembered specifically from the viewers. And I think they did an excellent job. Obviously, they have reduced resources because they're independent. They don't have a huge corporation backing them like The Hill. But I thought they did a tremendous job of making it feel like that same kind of media that you were always consuming. Obviously, the commentary is the exact same, which is the fundamental, what we're all there for anyway, the insight.
We can take a look at one of the videos they posted, kind of talking about the new show a little bit and react to it.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Breaking Points with Krystal and Saagar. We have an amazing show for everybody today. I miss saying that, Krystal. What
I know. Indeed, we do. Guys, super excited. Welcome to Breaking Points. Can't tell you how hard we've been working to get all of this together, how excited we are. I'm actually feel like a little nervous this morning, so you have to forgive us for all of that. Just give you a little bit of a sort of rundown, a tour of how we're going to be doing the show. You can see we've got this new graphic along the side that kind of gives you a guidepost to the type of stories that we're going to be covering today. So we've got a little intro for you this morning. We're going to look at a Dem autopsy and some warning signs for them, Trump's Facebook ban, the New York City mayoral race, Saagar's Breaking Points, new name for our monologues. My Breaking Points, we've got the one and only Glenn Greenwald on. He's going to address some of the attempts to smear him and also talk about the media, so you don't want to miss that. What are we doing here, Saagar? What is sort of the ethos of the show?
What are we?
What are we doing
Why
here?
am I on this beautiful new set with this beautiful, really well-designed desk? What are we doing
You're
here?
so
Which
obsessed
is
with the
that
desk.
I love this desk. I always will. Listen. What we're trying to do here, we said this in our mission statement, we said this whenever we announced, which is that we truly believe in making everybody really hate each other less and hate the corrupt ruling class more. And I don't think there's ever been a more politically charged time in America. Yes, January 6th and all that happened. That was like the high water mark, if you will. But the scars of all of that are with us. And the Biden presidency is now as sclerotic as I think both of you and I predicted. And there's just this empty rot, which we're constantly fighting over and asking questions about what comes next. And nobody who works in politics or in the media seems to know. These people are all reporting on January 6th commissions as if that's going to solve everything. We need to be focused on what's actually breaking apart in this country. And I think that is the core ethos of the show. We want to tell people what the media is not going to tell them. We want to take them behind the scenes about how elite corruption works and really just connect it to the lived experience of your day-to-day life. People know they're being lied to. They know that the system is rigged. They do not know and have the ability to articulate why. And I really see that as the overall mission of what we're trying to do here.
We want to take the pieces of Rising that you all really responded to and that we thought were really important. And honestly, over the course of Rising, it went through a few different evolutions and iterations. It had different focuses at different times. But one through line was those sort of breaking points that underlie all of what's happening, whether it's in our political system, whether it's in housing, whether it's in the rise of sort of conspiracy theories. All of these things are happening underneath the surface, and no one's, that that's going on, and yet no one is speaking to them in the media. And it's wild, we say this thing about hate each other less and hate the elites more, and as you were just saying it right now, it's sort of mind-blowing that that's the exact opposite of what most media do.
Politics. That's all politics is about.
Most media is literally about making us hate each other and love the elites. Like, that's the message that's being pushed time and time again. So when you see these metrics that show trust in the media declining and declining and declining, it's because people sense that and they really resist it. It doesn't reflect what they're seeing in their daily life. So we want to bring, you know, the other thing that you all always told us you really responded to on Rising was the high level of production. Yep. I want to say thank you to everybody who's already subscribed as a premium member. $10 a month, you get the whole thing uncut in your inbox, the full entire show.
1 hour early. Yeah.
We also, though, if that's out of your reach, like, guys, really don't worry about it. The clips are going to be up on YouTube. The audio is going to be free with breaks anywhere that you get normal podcasts. By the way, that was one of the top comments we would always get on Rising.
That's right.
Like,
where's the podcast?
Why can't we listen to this as audio? Now you're going to be able to get that. And look, we really want to look forward. We had our reasons for leaving the Hill, but the bottom line is this is more true to our values. We believed in you guys. We thought that this was important to you and that you would give us the support necessary to continue the production values and the type of product that we want to put out into the world that you all have told us has been very impactful. And you've really, really showed up for us as we sort of like stepped into the breach. So guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're so excited to be able to do this show without any sort of like corporate anything.
I know.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to cut it off. I think they gave a pretty decent summary of what they're thinking about as the concept for this new show. And just to prove Krystal's point there about how indeed their audience did show up for them to make this transition possible financially, I wanted to throw up here screenshots from today. And I promise I took these screenshots right before we went live. It's not like I took one of them this morning and one of them 10 minutes ago or whatever. No, these were taken at the same time.
Hatchet job by Gavin.
Yeah, so this is the Hill now post Krystal and Saagar. This is with Ryan and Emily as their new host. And as you can see here, this alien video, Pentagon pressed on UFOs, is the only video that even did remotely respectably. It got 57,000 views, and I would wager that that's because of the UFOs, not because of the co-hosts. No offense. And again, these other videos, I mean, these are the kind of numbers that we get here at the Vanguard, and you know, we're happy when a video gets like 9.3K. That's woohoo. But you know, we're a tiny channel that's not backed by a corporation, and it's not co-hosted by the DC bureau chief of the
and we can tell you
Post.
that that's not a sustainable level of ad revenue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that's definitely not for a company that's actually trying to make money on a large scale and not just, you know, barely sustain their existences. You know, anyway, so again, this is the Hill's numbers post Krystal and Saagar's exit. They're not doing too hot, I think it's safe to say. But if you look, however, at the Breaking Points numbers from today, again, their debut this morning, these aren't most of these aren't even particularly like, you know, crazy titles or sexy topics. Like, these are pretty standard, you know, standard issues that they talk about they did on Rising and are now continuing to. But still, you can see that just because of the fact that it's Krystal and Saagar, people know they'll be getting the commentary of two commentators that they actually trust and respect. The views are way higher. We have, you know, 61,000 about this race in Texas. And then here we have this one that
I wanted to talk about this specific clip because I think it's hilarious that this is by a landslide their biggest clip of the day. And it's because so many people are misinterpreting the headline. I think it's everybody's like, oh my gosh, Saagar's decided to be the lefty and Krystal's the right winger now. But really, they're literally just talking about the position of where they're sitting on their desk. I think it's hilarious and like great fucking headline to them because that clearly
funny.
Broke through the algorithm. But it got nearly double what all of the other videos did, and I think that's why. But either way, that was really smart headlining right there. That's the goal.
I think it was also one of the first ones I think it might have also been one of the very first ones they put out this morning.
So gotcha. That probably also
might have gotten, yeah, exactly. But either way, the point is that, you know, at their lowest here, they're at 43. That's only a little bit less than what the Hill was doing at their highest today. Again, with that alien video, only like 10K higher. So it's overall just pretty embarrassing for the Hill. And also it's proof that, you know, despite the fact that the corporate algorithm is certainly a real thing, and despite the fact that they're definitely fucking indie content creators, you know, it's something people do want to watch compelling commentary. You know, they're going to go where the compelling commentary is, regardless of if it's buried by the algorithm, regardless of how hard the gatekeepers make it to find. People don't want to watch this fucking fucking drivel. And again, no offense to the new co-hosts of The Hill. They're better than, you know, their contemporaries, for example, on MSNBC and Fox News, for example. But, you know, they're more interesting than your traditional bobblehead. I'll give them that. But compared to what was lost, the talent that was sacrificed, I think it's pretty clear what's going on. And Krystal and Saagar have, you know, pretty immediately made up the difference. You know, they're already at over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. And again, with that subscriber count doing way higher numbers than a channel that they built to 1 million subscribers. So I think it's just very indicative of who won and who lost in this whole situation. And the fact that Krystal and Saagar are going to just be okay, I think, in this transition. And they're going to continue to foster an audience even without the backing of The Hill or the corporate algorithm.
Oh, yeah, I think they're going to be more than okay. I think they're actually going to continue to be trailblazers in the space that they're forging in independent media. And to be honest, as somebody who obviously we're younger and at an earlier stage in our career than Saagar and Krystal, and obviously our podcast and platform is much smaller, but I think it's hugely inspirational to see people that have had what I would consider one of the best spots as far as institutional media gigs that you could possibly get. They had it sounded like complete editorial control. They were deeply involved at every level, which is of course a lot of work, but it's the preference to people like us who want to, you know, make sure that everything is exactly how we want it. And obviously that's the same for Krystal and Saagar, but I think it's inspirational to see somebody like that, you know, who has this massive platform, who says, no, I'm not going to toe any fucking lines, because frankly, not many people and not many people at all. And it made my level of respect for the two of these people go. I had a lot of respect for Krystal Ball before this. I have tremendous respect for the both of them after this, because listen, going out and doing something like this, they have no idea that they're not going to get demonetized by YouTube. That CNN and Fox and MSNBC aren't going to, you know, work together and squash all of this alternative media, that they're going to decide that they're not journalists and that therefore they have to crack down on this on YouTube. Shit that Gavin and I get afraid of with our tiny channel, they're now going to have to fucking be afraid of as a ginormous channel. And as they continue to grow, and likely what will happen is they'll be one of the first like real authentic, I don't want to call them bread tube, because I know Saagar's not a bread tube, but you know what I'm talking about, that independent media space that doesn't give a fuck, that still cracks 1 million, right? Like doesn't have to sell out and play ball and do all this like David Pakman kind of horse shit. Neoliberal politics breaking into the progressive mold. No, I think they're going to be able to push through 1 million subs. I think they're going to change the fucking game. And I can't wait to see it, one, as somebody who has, you know, a vested interest in the new media movement, but also just as an individual who I've watched Rising a lot. And I certainly did when it first started and got going. And you know, now I'll probably never watch it again, but I will regularly consume Breaking Points, right? It's kind of, you know, it's kind of become Rhino, right? Rising in name only. Breaking Points is the new real Rising. And it just shows that the secret to this in a real way is the people and the relationship that you get from people who are covering your news, right? You cannot just replace Krystal and Saagar's dynamic. You cannot just replace that. It's not going to work. It's actually going to fuck up everything. It's like pulling out a card in a card castle. You know what I mean? Or
yeah, totally, 100%. And also, I think it's kind of weird how like the new hosts, because from what I have seen of the new Rising, like they're literally trying to play Krystal and Saagar. They even say the same like phrases in between stories. They have like the same transition lines. It's like, can you guys not develop a rapport of your own? Like, do you have to just pretend to be Krystal and Saagar instead of?
I would be so outraged if I was them. I'm outraged for them, but you know what I mean. They should have
changed the entire concept, or at least the name and the general structure of it, because it really obviously was Krystal and Saagar's creation, and it's kind of weird to see two people that aren't them, and frankly don't even have the same politics as them, try to carry it on as if nothing has changed, seemingly. So that's weird. But I also do think it's impressive, certainly, that they made this courageous switch, and also I think there's a strategic lesson to be learned here for the left. You know, Krystal and Saagar weren't afraid to kind of use the institutions that exist. They weren't afraid to go out there and spread their message via an institution which they knew would spread that message far and wide in the Hill, you know. And then they turned around, stabbed them in the back, and said, fuck you, we're going independent. You know, they took all that energy.
They stabbed him in the front, Gavin.
That's true. That's true. You're right. And honestly, the Hill stabbed them. But the point is that after garnering all this institutional support, building up their presences as commentators, building up the popularity of their ideas, now they're going to turn around and say, no, fuck that. Fuck the Hill. They're going to point out everything wrong with the corporate media that they were just a part of, step back and take it from a third party approach, which honestly I think is a good and applicable strategy that can be used in electoral politics too. Like if you think about it, what did I talk about a lot as far as like if an actual lefty really wants to make a serious third party run? I was talking about you should run as a Democrat, make it through the whole Democratic primary, knowing that they're going to screw you, but make as much noise in the process as possible. Force the media to cover you. Be crazy. I mean, not literally, but you know what I'm saying. Really, really make a stink and make people Google you. Become the most Googled candidate after every debate. Just become a wrecking ball. And then when the establishment screws you, then that would be a better, more opportune moment to actually declare a third party or an independent insurgent challenge to the establishment, because you've already garnered the name recognition. You've already garnered the internet interest, for example, that you would need to pull that off. You can't just, come out of nowhere as some nobody, Howie Hawkins style, and be like, I'm going to take on the two-party duopoly and, in 6 months or whatever or less, become a nationwide presence and take down two of the most popular people in existence. No, you have to have already built
it's not that
up.
easy to replicate the Bernie Sanders thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to, and yeah, exactly. And there's just not enough time usually by the time that a general election is comes around to do that. So I think there's a good lesson here, and I'm speaking a lot to make this point, but the point is that sometimes the left is very afraid to have anything to do with institutions, corporate institutions. But sometimes we're shooting ourselves in the foot by enforcing that purity standard at all costs, because personally, I think it's a great thing that Krystal was able to use that algorithm to her advantage, use that platform of the Hill to her advantage to spread her message of anti-elitist, anti-corporate populism far and wide, like I said. And now they can section off and spread the truth about what's going on in the corporate world, educate more people as a result, and hopefully funnel more people into the independent media world. People that previously, maybe wouldn't have ever checked out this part of YouTube. They would have written it off as a bunch of crazy people with webcams and USB mics. And now someone like Krystal Ball is giving it serious credence. And we can say that from experience. Krystal literally shouted us out and said, go sub to the Vanguard. So it's super cool that,
and overnight we got like 1,000 new subs or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I really respect that, not just because I like her commentary, but because now she and Saagar are realizing that no, they're not in the corporate world. They're in our space now. This is our stomping grounds. This is not the corporate world, and they're a part of it, whether or not it's fashionable to be. You know what I mean? So I think it's a good thing to not that they're not trying to be above that. They're not trying to, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm getting at?
No, 100%. It actually reminds me of, and we talked about this movie a lot, and a lot of people hated it for different reasons, whatever. But there was the Tom Hayden and Abby Hoffman argument in the movie Trial of the Chicago 7, which was rooted in real political disagreements that the two had. For people who don't know, Abby Hoffman is a legendary, leftist. He wrote this book called Steal This Book, which was, it's actually, you can see it behind me. That's not planned. But it's basically a guide to how to survive on no money, like how to ride buses for free, how to get food for free, how to furnish your apartment for free, how to squat for free, like all this kind of shit. And he published it in like the late 70s, I think, or early 70s, something like that. Either way, he was a big anti-war activist, and he did like stand-up political comedy way back in the day before anybody did that. But anyway, Tom Hayden was played by Eddie Redmayne's character in the movie The Trial of the Chicago 7 that Sorkin directed. But they had this big disagreement about how Abby Hoffman was always being a big showman, and he was always doing it really big and bringing cameras and making himself this like big star. And Tom Hayden says, you don't even want the war to end because then it would be somehow bursting the bubble. And he's like, you fucking idiot. I don't have any money. The only thing that we can do to get our message out there is to use the system, that the powers that be. And the only way that we can do that is if I go out there and I bring fucking cameras and I am the fucking spectacle, then they'll put a camera in front of me and then I can say something in front of them. They're never going to invite me on in a suit and fucking tie, so I'm not going to play that fucking game. You know what I mean? It kind of reminds me of that. We have to get our message out there. They did it through the means that they had. And when it finally stop being the best route forward, fuck you. We're going to go do our own independent route. That's how you have to do it.
Exactly. And if we're ever privileged enough to have a conversation with Krystal and Saagar, something I'd really like to talk about with them, because again, this is kind of continuing that line of thinking of how this move could be translated into electoral success or just success in general for the left. I'd be interested to hear about how, in specific, they resisted those pressures, which were certainly, surrounding them during their time at the Hill. And being in that space, obviously, you're, going to be rubbing elbows with other, elite type people. You're going to be surrounded by a lot of other rich folks, for et cetera, et cetera. So I would love to know, is it just they're that independent minded or what? But how did they resist those pressures, and how did they just resist bending to them? Because, with time and time again, when we send, for example, insurgent progressives to Congress, the pressures around them immediately change them. But with Krystal and Saagar, seemingly, they've become more radicalized by this experience of dealing with the corporate world, with dealing with the mainstream media. Now it seems like they're really on the warpath against this style of content and commentary, and they're really, declaring their independence in a big way. So it's interesting that they were able to resist that so well. And it does make me think that, maybe if Krystal Ball had been successful in her congressional campaign, we might have gotten a real squad member out of that.